Hello, Year 6, and welcome back to Lesson 7 of our English lessons all about Kensuke's Kingdom. Remember, this week you are writing an entry into Michael's ship's log. Let's get started. Before we begin, you will need a pen or pencil, as well as your home learning book and something to write on. You may also want your copy of Kensuke's Kingdom to help you add to your writing. If you don't have these things, pause the video here and come back when you're ready. All right, let's get going. Let's remember that your writing task this week is to write an entry for Michael's ship's log. You will need to retell your day at sea using detail, engaging vocabulary, and varied sentence structure. Each day you will build up ideas, and on Thursday you will do an extended piece of writing. Let's have a look at my model text. My challenge for you is to figure out which feature I have highlighted in red. If you're up for an even bigger challenge, can you figure out what's different about the examples underlined in green? Listen while I read. Just after I arrived on deck, I was sitting with Stella on the bow. She was keeping watch, and I was drawing, when I saw a pod of flying fish a few meters from the Peggy Sue. Well, I suppose Stella was really the one to spot them. She began barking and making a fuss as soon as she caught sight of them. They mesmerized me for what felt like hours, but it was probably just a few minutes. I had just thought to grab my binoculars to get a closer look when they suddenly disappeared. Hopefully I'll see more again soon. Not long after, Mum spotted a shark off the port bow. Mum claimed it was a basking shark, but I never saw it. Instead, she made me search my encyclopedia and learn about basking sharks, and then draw one. They're massive, but they don't eat people, just fish and plankton. I finished my drawing of the shark, though not my best, quite quickly. I like doing my drawings. I think my best one so far is my flying fish from this morning. All right, Year 6, can you decide what feature have I highlighted in red? My hint for you is that we've studied this feature already on our online lessons. What feature is it? If you said parenthesis, well done. Today we are focusing on using parenthesis to add detail when retelling an event. Pause the video here and take a few moments to write down your learning objective. All right, let's get learning. Let's recall that parenthesis means extra information. My turn. Parenthesis means extra information. Your turn. Great job. Afterthought, clarify, or interrupt. Well done. Let's also recall that you can punctuate parentheses with brackets, commas, or dashes. The parenthesis should be able to be taken away from the sentence, and the sentence should still make sense. If you take the parenthesis away and your sentence no longer makes sense, you need to go back and have a think about the way you've chosen to use your parentheses. My turn. Parenthesis means extra information. Your turn. Great work. My turn. Afterthought, clarify, or interrupt. Your turn. Great job. Let's take a look at some examples. Here's an example of using parenthesis as an afterthought or a thought that comes after the original. I thought they're massive, but they don't eat people. Just fish and plankton. This is an example of using parenthesis to clarify. I was sitting with Stella on the bow. I should clarify when I arrived on deck. I was sitting with Stella on the bow just after I had arrived on deck. And finally, This is an example of using parenthesis to interrupt. Please ignore the exclamation point. I finished my drawing of the shark, though not my best, quite quickly. I like doing my drawings. In this example, the parenthesis interrupts the thought. I was thinking about my drawing of the shark when I realized it wasn't my best, so I put that idea into my sentence. My turn. Parenthesis means extra information. Your turn. Great work. Parenthesis can be taken away and the sentence still works. Well done. Let's take a look at this idea that parenthesis can be taken away and the sentence should still make sense. Number 1, they're massive, but they don't eat people. Remember, if I remove the parenthesis, my sentence should still make sense. Let's give it a try. They're massive, but they don't eat people! Exclamation point. Does my sentence still make sense? Yes, it does. I've used parenthesis correctly. Let's look at another example. I was sitting with Stella on the bow, just after I had arrived on deck. If I remove my parenthesis, will my sentence still make sense? Yes, it will. Great work, Year 6. And one final example. I finished my drawing of the shark, though not my best, quite quickly. I like doing my drawings. If I remove that parenthesis, does my sentence still make sense? Yes, it does. Great work. So remember, when using parenthesis, you should be able to remove it, and your sentence still makes sense. Let's take a look at how to punctuate our parenthesis. When we add parenthesis to our writing, we use commas, brackets, and dashes. My turn. Commas, brackets, and dashes. Your turn. Great job. We use these punctuation marks to mark where a parenthesis begins and ends. Afterthought. They're massive, but they don't eat people. Dash. Just fish and plankton. I was sitting with Stella on the bow, comma, just after I had arrived on deck. I finished my drawing of the shark, bracket, though not my best, close bracket, quite quickly. When parentheses are embedded, we use a pair of brackets, dashes, or commas to mark the parenthesis. My turn. Embedded. Your turn. This means that the parenthesis is dropped in the middle of a sentence. It doesn't come at the beginning, and it doesn't come at the end. It is embedded. My turn. Embedded. Your turn. Great job. Remember, when parentheses are embedded, we use a pair of brackets, dashes, or commas. Let's look at an example. I was sitting with Stella on the bow. She was keeping watch, and I was drawing, when I saw a pod of flying fish a few meters from the Peggy Sue. Is my parenthesis embedded, Year 6? Yes, it is. Well done. It's right in the middle of my sentence. Therefore, I use a pair of brackets, a bracket at the beginning of the parenthesis and a bracket at the end. Let's check that our sentence still makes sense if I remove my parenthesis. I was sitting with Stella on the bow when I saw a pod of flying fish a few meters from the Peggy Sue. Does it make sense? Yes, it does. So I've used my parenthesis correctly. Great work. Now, sometimes parenthesis can come at the end of a sentence. When this is the case, we use just one bracket, dash, or comma to mark the parenthesis. How many brackets, dashes, or commas do we use? Great work. Just one if the parenthesis comes at the end. Here's an example. They're massive, but they don't eat people. Dash, just fish and plankton. Notice my one dash here. And let's check that it still makes sense if I remove the parenthesis. They're massive, but they don't eat people. Yep, still makes sense. I've used parenthesis correctly. Great work. My turn. Parenthesis means extra information. Your turn. Well done. My turn. Afterthought, clarify, or interrupt. Well done. Let's remember our sentences. They're massive, but they don't eat people. Dash, just fish and plankton. I was sitting with Stella on the bow, just after I had arrived on deck. I finished my drawing of the shark, though not my best, quite quickly. Now year 6. Let's challenge ourselves and try to identify the parenthesis in these sentences. Number 1 says, Mum claimed it was a basking shark, but I never saw it. What is the parenthesis here? Number 2 says, I had just thought to grab my binoculars to get a closer look when they suddenly disappeared. Can you identify the parenthesis? And number 3, I always listen to Mum. She is the skipper after all, and I've stayed a lovely shade of nutty brown. What's the parenthesis here? Great work. Let's look. Number 1, the parenthesis is, but I never saw it. Number 2, did you say to get a closer look? Well done. And number 3, I hope you found she is the skipper after all. Great job. Now, I've made an error year 6. One of my sentences uses parenthesis correctly. The other does not. Pause the video here, read both sentences, and decide which uses parenthesis correctly. Return when you're ready to hear the answer. All right, year 6. Which of these sentences uses parenthesis? Yes, number 1. Well done. And number 2, I've not used parenthesis correctly. I could have used a dash where I put the colon, but because I used the colon, I'm wrong. Oh no. Let's keep going. Ooh, another challenge. Have I identified the parenthesis correctly? Give me a tick if I have, and fix my work if I haven't. Pause the video here, read the 3 examples, and come back when you're ready to talk about the answers. All right, let's give it a go. Mum claimed it was a basking shark, but I never saw it. Is this the parenthesis? No, it's not. The parenthesis is, but I never saw it. Number 2, they are massive, but they don't eat people. Just fish and plankton. Have I identified the parenthesis correctly? Yes, I have. Well done. And number 3, I just finished my drawing of the shark, though not my best, quite quickly. Have I identified the parenthesis here? No, I haven't. Let's remember, the parenthesis will come inside those brackets, though not my best. Is the parenthesis here? My turn. Parenthesis means extra information. Your turn. Good job. My turn. Afterthought, clarify, or interrupt. Great job, Year 6. Let's remember our 3 sentences. Remember, today's learning objective is to use parenthesis to add detail when retelling an event. While we're exploring the use of parenthesis, I want you to be thinking about how you will use parenthesis in your writing. And if you want to magpie any of my ideas, you can always pause the video and jot down some of my ideas that you might like to use. Which is more engaging for the reader? And why? I've highlighted the parenthesis for you so you can see it. But just because there's parenthesis doesn't necessarily mean that it will be more engaging. I want you to read both sentences and tell me which one is more engaging. Pause the video here, have a read, and come back when you're ready to talk about the answers. Great job. Let's read. Number 1. I was sitting with Stella on the bow when I saw a pod of flying fish a few meters from the Peggy Sue. And number 2. I was sitting with Stella on the bow. She was keeping watch, and I was drawing, when I saw a pod of flying fish a few meters from the Peggy Sue. Which is more engaging? If you said number 2, you are correct. Now, the more important question here, Year 6, is why? Why is number 2 more engaging? Well, I think it's more engaging because it gives the reader a bit of extra information to help them understand what's going on. How about this one? Which is more engaging for the reader? And how do you know? Number 1, they're huge, but they eat fish and plankton. Number 2, they're massive, but they don't eat people, just fish and plankton. Pause the video here, write down which you believe is more engaging and why, then come back when you're ready to talk about the answer. All right, let's take a look. Number 1 is not as engaging as number 2. There are a few reasons for this. In number 1, I use the conjunction but, and in this case, that conjunction is not chosen correctly. Additionally, in example number 2, I've given the reader more information. I'm saying they don't eat people. That's a pretty important fact to know. So that's why number 2 is more engaging. Here is a sentence that I've written. I suppose it's 2 sentences that I've written. I'd like you to help me improve my work. Please help me add parenthesis for an afterthought and clarify where something has happened. So Year 6, I'm asking you to add 1 parenthesis to tell me, an afterthought, and a second parenthesis to clarify where something happened. Pause the video here and come back when you're ready to share your ideas and see some of mine. Great job. Let's take a look at how I improved my writing. I added a clarification to the first sentence. Not long after, Mum spotted a shark. I clarified where that happened, just a few meters from the boat. She claimed it was a basking shark, but I never saw it. That is an afterthought. I'm telling you what Mum claimed, and then I'm telling you a bit more about it. I never saw it. Now, it's your turn, Year 6. Today, you're going to continue to write your ship's log. Remember, a ship's log is like a diary entry, but it's focused more on events than emotions. You could include what Michael sees out at sea or how he spends his day in your paragraphs today. Remember that I need you to focus on using parenthesis in your writing. What is parenthesis? Great job. Parenthesis means extra information. My turn. Afterthought, clarify, or interrupt. Great work. And what are 3 ways that we can punctuate parenthesis? Great job. Brackets, commas, or dashes. Fantastic work, Year 6. Now, it's your turn to get writing. Remember that you can always use my model text to support you with your writing. You could use some of my parenthesis, or you could replace my parenthesis with some ideas of your own. Good luck in your writing, and well done today.